Ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming back and bearing with us through this process. It's been really helpful. Your input and all the work that you've done is really appreciated, and I can't thank you enough. As well as the district. We've got a pretty full plate tonight of some things that we want to do. Our main objectives tonight are to give you some time to review some updated materials. And we've developed draft options 3 through 5 for you to review. I want to go over some logistics for the upcoming public information session and answer any questions you may have about the project. And the main goal tonight is to narrow the focus to 3 or fewer draft options to take to the public information session in September. Before we get to the exercise, we're going to start narrowing scenarios down. I'm going to give you some time to do what we call a school-by-school exercise, and I think it's almost an hour's worth of time where you're going to look at each particular school, and on the sheet that I've given you, mark up which option you think is best for each school, and I'll give you a little orientation on that. Committee members, if you haven't picked up packets of information, I have them over here on this back table. Pick up the one that has a binder clip on it, and then there's 3 loose pieces. One of the loose pieces is an agenda, and it's a revised agenda. You can go ahead and scrap the agenda that's at the top of this page because I made some changes last night. So we're moving right along in the process. You can see we're about halfway through. We've made a lot of progress, but we still have a long ways to go. And so really we're at the point here where we've done some options development and options review, and we're at a point where here in September we're going to share basically some draft options with the public, just to give them an idea of where we are and how far we've come. Not to say that that's going to be the final one and those are going to be the options that you're going to start whittling down and things like that. There's still several meetings in between there, 3 meetings to continue to develop options, and then we'll be regrouping back with the public in December before Christmas break to share with them again revised options. And so we still have a lot of time. You can think of how much progress we've made in the first 3 meetings, and then we have 3 more meetings after this public information session to continue working through options, and then we'll have one final meeting in January before you finalize your recommendations. Give you some updates since the last meeting. I have made several planning block cuts to incorporate feedback from you as per your last committee meeting, and then also input from the public. Really, most of the cuts that I had made were on the western end, along Newtown Road and south, some of the areas on the northern part of Parkwood and the southern part of Cuthbertson. You guys had talked about making some edits to align some of those communities, and I also made some other cuts along Providence Road to try to build some more variability to align with some of the options that you had marked up at your last meeting. So that's where the majority of some of the planning block cuts have been made since the last meeting. I also made we included the Ray Road planned extension on the maps, so those show up now on all of the options maps. Well, I don't think they show up. They may or may not. I thought they were on the options maps, but they are on the interactive map. You can see them. I did make planning block cuts to align with the Ray Road extension, so you can take a look at that and let me know if you have any questions about that. We updated the subdivision layer because there were comments about the subdivision layer being outdated, and so we put a fresh subdivision layer from the county on there, and it has all the latest and greatest subdivisions on the interactive map. And we've also provided laptops for you, so we've got 8 laptops. There's an extra one over there, and this is really for you guys to use as you're doing the school-by-school exercise and exploring things. We've got the maps. We have elementary here, and I think there's middle school in the middle table and high school on the back table. And so you can also pull up the maps, interactive map on your phone. I've used it all the time on my phone when I'm in airports and things like that and looking at Union County options and things like that. I've also shared emails. We've received a good number of emails, about 300 or so, or 400 emails since the last committee meeting. And I've been tracking those, and I've emailed you guys the raw emails. And I've also done some analysis of those emails to identify neighborhoods and communities that have concerns and how they are played out in the various options. So hopefully that's something helpful for you guys to see. I color-coded the green. Green areas are ones where we address some of their concerns, and orange are the options where we have not addressed their concerns. Not to say that we can address all of the concerns from everybody, but that's there for your benefit. Also, Dr. McKibben's in the back here. He has some forecast information and pop pyramids and things like that. So if you have questions about long-term forecast information, things like that, as you're working through your work, you can always consult with Dr. McKibben as well. I want to remind you that everything is considered draft. Again, nothing is written in stone. Even when we go to the public information session in September, anything is subject to change and pending modification as we continue to explore options that best meet our overall objectives and criteria. So it's important to remind public who are feeling sense of anxiety and things that things are still in flux. Nothing's written in ink here. Everything's in pencil, and we're still working through the process. So really what we're focused on tonight is to narrow our options so that we can have a manageable number to take to the public. I think we have 6 options right now. So what we'd like to do is get it down to about 3 or fewer if you feel it's pertinent. But we'd like to narrow this down to 3 options if we could to share with the public, so they're not overwhelmed with a multitude of scenarios that we have drafted so far. You have in your packets, you have the statistics and information that we always give that shows the utilization and impacts and all of that feeder pattern information. You have the maps of the individual options in letter format. And then we've also provided you some of the distance calculation data in print form, so that you have the distance calculations at the back, so you can see that. And all of this information, by the way, is posted online, and so the public can download and print off any of these materials as well. So we also have the interactive map, now reflects all of the options that have been drafted to date, and as I said, everything is posted online as well. A couple of things I wanted to just kind of give you this for your benefit is when you start looking at these, I always recommend to look at the geography, see the maps, what you like in terms of the geography, how the boundaries are shaped, but then look at the numbers and focus on the numbers too. Or look at the numbers and see what you like with the numbers and then say, okay, this one looks kind of odd, then go look at the boundary and see how does that look or how does that relate. So study them both, because there's 2 primary components of data. There's the tables, and then there are the maps. So does anybody have any questions about, I'm going to get into the school-by-school exercise and give you a little orientation on that. But before we get there, did any of you have any questions about the process or questions that have arisen since the last committee meeting? Anything that you want to share? And if you could please speak into the mic, because we are being live streamed as well.
So, go ahead. I was going to say one bit of housekeeping. I've read all of the emails that have been forwarded to us. We get them in a mass, like compiled PDF, and we it's a one-way communication at this point. Really, it's sent to Mr. Cropper and set up. But I just want to make sure that the public knows that I am available. You can reach out to me. I mean, my personal email, leehenage@gmail.com. So if you're in the Parkwood cluster and you want to reach out to me, some people have reached out to me by Facebook or by email. I'm available, and I welcome your input. I think it's really important for us to consider the input and to hear the voices of people who are affected.
Yes, and on that note, I think it is important that if the public members do reach out to you individually as committee members, what's most important is that any input that you receive from neighbors and things like that, it's most important that that input gets shared with the entire committee so that the full committee can benefit from that feedback. So if people do reach out to you as an individual committee member, I think it's good to encourage them, hear them out and listen to what they say and answer any questions they may have and clarifications. But it's certainly important to have them, encourage them to put their comments on the realignment page so that the entire committee and as well as myself can hear what concerns they have or what observations they have so that we could all benefit and the committee can all benefit from that input. In terms of the committee, your tasks and your roles, you guys are really going above and beyond your duty in this process and doing a lot of hard work. You're doing a lot of homework and things like that. So I want to let you know that it's not expected of you. Don't feel like you have to go to out to the public and host sessions with public members to look at things like that. I think that we have a process in place where the public can provide input, which is shared with the committee, and I study that information as well. And then so there's a process in place to receive input and to disseminate that input to the committee. So I don't feel obligated to go even further beyond your role and do things in between meetings in terms of talking with public members and hosting things and that. It's not really necessary. And if you do have any engagement with them, I would just encourage them to submit their feedback via the email so that the full committee can benefit from that input.
So I just want to commend you on, I'll call it the magic spreadsheet that lists each subdivision, the feedback, and then you're color coding it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you can continue doing that,
yes,
that will be great because that is an awesome tool for us to use.
Yes, sir. And I do it. It helps me as well to see where we are, and so I will continue to do that as well. And that's something I don't know if that's something I've posted online, but I'll also put that in a PDF form and post that online so the public can also see that. That may be one piece that I know the emails are shared, but I don't know if that Excel sheet has been something that's been posted online. So I'll make sure that gets to UCPS tonight, and we'll so that the public can also track that.
So if we're reached out to and we're not part of that cluster, but we want to see if the member of the other cluster wants to meet with said group, what should be the line of communication? Because I don't have access to everybody's email or information. Is there an internal line to say, hey?
I would say we try to protect your privacy as committee members and not share emails publicly so that you don't get bombarded with emails and things like that. I mean, I have seen it happen in the past with other communities. I would say if you want to reach out to somebody specifically, you could email me and I could pass along their contact info to you, their email address to you. Before you do that, maybe talk with the committee member and make sure that it's okay to do that, that you guys are on the same page with sharing information. But we want to try to protect your individual emails because the emails that we have are ones that you use on a daily basis, and we don't want you to get inundated with hundreds of emails like that like I see coming through the realignment page. Any other questions from the committee?
Just wondering, because I have seen the buses out and I saw the buses out prior to school starting on Monday. Any information on when we're going to get transportation efficiency data?
I have a note. After this meeting, we're going to start narrowing scenarios down to about 3. And I have a note after, once we finish this meeting tonight, I'm going to engage transportation, and I'm going to have a conversation with them and have them review the maps. And I'm actually going to have them go through a similar exercise as you do and mark up areas where they may have some concerns and things like that. And then I'll share that feedback with you at the next meeting. So I hope to have some more feedback from transportation in between the public, this meeting and the meeting 5. Yes, ma'am. So there's a lot. This is going to take a while, but it's something that is really helpful and useful. You'll see there's one of your loose sheets on the top header. It says school by school exercise. And when you look at this, basically what I want you to do is spend some time and go down the list and look at for each school. And what I want you to do is mark on each line which option you think is best for each particular school. So I want you to look at the numbers, the statistics data, and then also look at the maps. You have the interactive map here in front of you. Basically, starting at Antioch, or you could start with the middle and high, which are on the back, and basically look at Antioch and say, okay, options 1 through 5, evaluate the data, the map, and things like that, and to put an X in the one that you feel is best for that school. What this helps me, after this is all done, I'd like to collect your information and see if this can actually generate some hybrids. For instance, you may all feel like maps on the east end or the northern end of the county are best in one option, but then maps on the west end are better for another option, and that could actually spawn some hybrid scenarios and things like that. You'll notice on the sheet I have in parentheses that where the options are actually the same. So what you see here, O1 equals O2A, O2B. This means that option 1, 2A, and 2B are the same boundary for East Union Middle, so that you can easily say, okay, so really with East Union Middle, there are two different boundary options in play right now. So there's these 3 options have the same boundary shape, and these 3 options have the same boundary shape, and so that'll help kind of reduce the amount of options analysis that you have to do. If you do see this and you feel like option 1 is the best, if possible, mark it on the first one that you see on the list if you feel one of these is best, so that I can help. It just helps me summarize all the information and put it into a more summary format. If you miss something, it's okay. It's no big deal. I can deal with it. Some of them you'll see all options differ. That means each option is unique. And if you identify something in here that may be a potential error, I've gone through this and checked it 3 or 4 times, but it's possible that I may have missed one. But I think that this is pretty solid, and it's accurate in terms of the options that are the same. So when you go through here, for Cuthbertson Middle, an example, you would put an X. If you like option 1, you put an X in option 1. If you feel there's no valid option right now, you can certainly put an X in no valid option. And as you continue to do this, you have the notes page here. So please put any notes in here on information that you feel is pertinent that you can share with me, and that has been helpful. It was helpful last time. Do you guys have any questions about the school by school exercise? So you're going to go through each school and just put an X by the one you think is best, and then I'm going to collect that information and I'll report that back to you and see what it brings us. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
So if we see an option that we think is good, but maybe needs to be slightly tweaked, do we check no valid option, or do we pick the option we like the best and then put down C notes because we have tweaks?
I would do that. I would say, okay, this is the best one, and unless you feel it's beyond repair. Like if you feel like there's no option and it's going to require movement of hundreds of kids, then you may want to put no valid option. But if it's something that can be a tweak or an adjustment, you can certainly do that. One more thing before we get into this school by school exercise, a little bit of a background on options 3 through 5 to give you just a little bit of a heads up on some of the changes that were made. 3 through 5 primarily have adjustments made in the west end with Parkwood, Cuthbertson, Weddington, Marvin Ridge, some things with elementary schools with Rayview and Marvin, things along Providence Road and Newtown. There's a lot of variation in the new maps with that area. We've also made some edits to, in the south, there was some comments about some concerns about Prospect Elementary School, and because given that it's an old building, it has some unique, unique classroom sizes, there were some concerns about some of the assumptions made in how classrooms were used for special programs and things like that. And I looked through the information, and I've also had noted in the prospect that the cafeteria was a little was undersized. And so you notice an option in some of the new options. I've backed off some of the numbers for Prospect to give them a little more space to account for some of those uniquenesses at that school. Up in the Porter Ridge area, there are you'll notice that 3, 4, 5 have a lot the same scenarios for the Porter Ridge cluster areas along Lawyers Road and things like that. And then we've also made some adjustments to Waxhaw and to give Waxhaw some more relief, and some other things in that area. But those are kind of a little rundown on what's changed with 3 through 5. Do you guys have any other questions before I let you go on the school by school exercise?
I just wanted to address the Prospect question you brought up. I mean, it's a school I know well. 2 kids go there. It's sort of an example of the specific illustrating the general, rules. So in that school, there were rooms listed as holding, 26 kids in a classroom. It was less than a 400 square foot room. Some of these older schools have some, unique quirks, and it's not unique to Prospect. I think there's probably a fair number of schools that fall into that category. I'm thinking East or Henby Bridge, or, a number of schools that have, some quirks to them. And so when we do this exercise and we're looking at efficiency or utilization, that's based on a capacity number. And if there's questions about, how many kids can truly fit in that school, I mean, I think that really affects what we can accurately judge when we judge whether this school is being utilized, above its capacity or below its capacity, or how that is.
Yes, and I've been through and I reviewed the capacities, and the board and the staff have reviewed capacities. The Prospect question was unique, and it's not to say that the 100% capacity is, in my opinion, is inadequate for Prospect, but I did have noted in the notes that it has an undersized cafeteria, which is notable. And so I think that when you look at elementary utilization, at the district level, it's 92%. So it's best, if in a perfect world, to have every single school somewhat with some room for expansion or change. So that's not to say that some are going to be higher or lower, but that's something that is notable. And on that note, you'll see the high schools. Some of the high school utilizations in these options are on the high side, and 100% at any of these high schools is going to feel overcrowded. It's going to feel very full. That's because every single classroom, if it's 100%, has the maximum number of students per the NCDPI at the high school and middle school level. So so just keep that in mind, in that there are forecasted changes and declines and things in some of these schools, which are pretty substantial. So the question, it's a tough question to address, is, do we leave it over at the front end, knowing that they're going to get a lot of relief? And that's just something that you have to tackle and work through. But when they are 100%, it's going to be a tight squeeze for that time period. So
the other question I had was, I mean, you could look at some newer schools like Kensington and Newtown, where in one school they're accounting for AIG classroom space within the building, and in the neighboring school the capacity does not include AIG's classroom space within the. So at some level, we're not comparing apples to apples in that case, and it makes it very hard for us as a committee to make a true and accurate assessment of what the capacity of that school is.
Yes, and some of these AIG has the same class size as 4th and 5th grade in the assumptions that we're working on in sort of the class size. And so in some cases, there may be an extra space that's put in the 4th and 5th grade. And in some cases, like a school like Newtown that's extremely overcrowded, there are spaces in there for 4th and 5th grade, but you could assume that one of those classes is set aside for AIG. It wouldn't impact the total number of capacity for the building. because the AIG has the same class size as a 4th and 5th grade class. Again, that goes back to the notion of trying to give these schools that may have some gaps and deficits some relief, and so that they have the adequate space to be able to have the different program offerings and things like that as well. And some of the more extreme schools don't have space to do much of anything because they're so full, such as Newtown Elementary.
In the emails, I noticed that someone had said that Cuthbertson numbers were already off by almost 120 this year.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that's been verified? Should we even consider that?
I would, you know, we hear that a lot from all
Okay.
over the country. They're preliminary numbers. School hasn't even started yet. So a lot of times when they're enrolling kids, they haven't withdrawn students that need to be withdrawn. So everything's usually overinflated at the beginning. I would wait until we'll wait and see when the official numbers come in, and then we can do an actual apples to apples comparison.
On that note, if they did, increase, that would represent a 10% increase in enrollment last year compared to the 13 student increase last year. So like Matt said, I'm a little skeptical on that. When we do the forecast, we do this for every district. You wait for the official enrollment numbers. Kids are done moving around. You clean the data, particularly high school, because you have some dropouts, you have some transfers, things like that. Your 20th day numbers, which I believe now they're going to be September 26th. The actual 20th day is not about a week to clean it, and then we'll do the evaluation on that. But we tell school districts never, ever do any decisions based on preliminary numbers. Because just, oh, thank you. I'll now open the medley of show tunes. Those numbers have so much fluidness in them that you really can't compare. It's speculation. Registered students and students attending in the 20th day are usually two completely different numbers. And high school is the one traditionally has the most amount of variance in it. So that was pretty irresponsible. Somebody can put that out in an email, I think. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to let you guys get to work. We have about 45 minutes for you to do this exercise, so take your time. Ask us if you have any questions. You've got the interactive map, and then the maps around. So feel free to communicate with each other as you're working through it. And you don't have to do everything solo, but now's your time to go ahead and do that. Feel like all of the options for a particular school are good, you can just say all good and just put a line through all of them. you can do that as well, you know, but if you find one that's definitively the best, then mark that one alone. Up the work. I have to 7:15 on the agenda, but we've got a lot of time for the sticker exercise. So I think if we need more time in this, we can give more time in this. I don't think the sticker exercise is going to take a full 30 minutes. So keep doing the good work, and I'll check back in. Okay, guys, what I think I'm going to do is, I know that this is a grueling exercise and looking through all the stuff, and I appreciate your attention to detail and looking at it. This is really something that benefits me and benefits us in preparation for meeting 5, so that I could see if there's any potential hybrids. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you take the rest of this home, and I hate to give homework to you guys. I know you do a lot, but perhaps you could finalize this and finalize your thoughts and bring it back to me at the public information session on September 19th. Then I can take this data and study it in preparation for meeting 5 to see if there may be some hybrids that can be created off of this. Does that sound okay? And any of you that have completed it now, you can certainly share that with me now. But I don't want to rush you, but I don't want to keep you here in the wee late hours of the night either. So does that sound all right? If you finish it, you can scan and email it to me. That would be perfect. Or you could bring it to me on September 19th, whichever you prefer. I'll keep a little checklist of who's given it to me and who hasn't. And I'll work with what I get. But this is good for me. It's also good for all of you to study each school and kind of see how the options look and evaluate things from a countywide perspective. So the next exercise kind of goes in line. You can kind of build off of the things that you've studied so far with this exercise that we've done. But what we do is we call this a sticker exercise. Sometimes in some places I call it dot democracy, and it's basically an exercise that helps us see if there's some consensus among the group without having to actually cast like a formal vote. But it helps us to understand how everybody feels, and helps to suggest and give some guidance towards consensus among the group. So what we want to do here is I put a flip chart together over here that has all the options: 1A, 2A, 2B, 3, 4, and 5. And with these maps, there's an elementary one, but that's paired with a middle and high school one because they're built together for feeder pattern alignment. So really, when you look at them, it's one of them is they're wedded to each other per se. And so when you look at this, what I'd like you to do is I've given each of you 3 stickers, and I'd like you to put 3 stickers on the options that you feel least meet the criteria. So this isn't a pick the best 3. This is a weed out the bottom 3, the 3 that you think don't work very well, and that least meet our objectives in our criteria. So, so the outcome of this is to see if there's any patterns, if there's any consensus on options to remove from consideration, so that you can start to narrow your focus down on a subset of maps. Not to say that we can't leverage components of an option that may be taken off the table. We could still use different pieces and parts of the options as we continue on. But this helps us narrow down to give a manageable number that you can share with the committee. And so once we see where the stickers land, then we'll have a little discussion about the stickers and make sure there's some consensus about which ones to remove from consideration that are for ones that are being shared with the public at the public information session. You can only place 1 sticker per option, so don't put 3 stickers on one option, and so that's important. And then, so we'll just give you some time. You can still study the numbers and overall evaluation. We have time built into this. But when you feel you're ready to pick the 3 that you feel least meets the objectives and criteria, the 3 that you think should come off the table at this point, you could put the 3 stickers on the 3 options that you feel that least meet the criteria. Do you guys have any questions about that?
Did you say that you wanted us to go on the elementary level or on the high school?
It's really all three. It's elementary, middle, and high because they're kind of built off of each other, the elementary. So if you're saying option 2B, then that's technically it's elementary, middle, and high school 2B, which would come off.
Okay, because there's only an elementary school option 2, so that's why I was.
Right, there's elementary 2, and then there's middle school 2A, high school 2A, and middle school 2B, high school 2B. So if 2A stays on, then elementary 2 will still be there with the 2A options. But if 2B, does that make sense? Then okay. Any other questions about that? Okay, so carry on, and if you feel ready, you can put your stickers on the 3 you feel least meet the criteria, and then when your guys are all done, we'll have a discussion. Also, if you haven't signed in, just for housekeeping, please fill out the sign-in sheet as well. Okay. Oh, yes, ma'am.
So if, for instance, option 2 for elementary, you didn't think was favorable, does that take out 2A and 2B collectively, or are you supposed to really be picking?
They're built together. So
Right.
Elementary option 3, for example, wouldn't pair very well with middle school, high school option 5, or middle school option 1. So if you feel that elementary option 2 should come off, and you feel that both 2A and 2B are both unacceptable, you could put a sticker on both. And we could see how the stickers fall. I think that if we end up with we may end up doing another sticker exercise depending on how things fall and how the results come out. But does that make sense? Okay. So carry on. to, but, but yeah, we're trying to weed some out here. Do we still have people who need to place their stickers? Okay, all the stickers have been placed? All right. So let's do a count here. Let's see. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 for 1A. 8. 5, 3, 4, 3. Okay, so I've tallied the totals here, and you could see that there are dots on all of the options, which indicates that there are some parts of every option that some committee members feel may be unfavorable. And so what I'd like to do is just start at the bottom. Let's see. Maybe we'll start at the top here. Let's start at the top ones. So for option 1 has 11 total stickers. Does anybody want to share what their thoughts are on why they felt compelled to put a sticker on option 1? Why they felt option 1 was one that did not meet our criterion objectives that should be considered? Yes, ma'am.
That's the original one that we were talking about. There's a few that are crossing over 74 that we were trying to use that roadway as one of the criteria to make sure that we're keeping people on one side of it or the other. So that one was one that majorly stuck out as we went down 74, that we had some crossovers.
Okay. Any other comments about option 1 and what compelled you to put a sticker on there? Yes, ma'am.
Just on Providence Road, there some of the communities would have traveled all the way down to Waxhaw, and I know that that's challenged with traffic.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
There was a lot of transportation inefficiencies as far as like busing in option 1 that hadn't been addressed yet, as far as schools, they weren't going to even their kids' classes.
Okay. So she was saying that there's some transportation inefficiencies. Some buses were actually, some neighborhoods were going to the 5th, beyond the 5th closest school. Okay. That's okay. Okay. Anybody else want to provide any feedback on option 1 and why they felt it was put a sticker on it to remove it? So I think since it has 11 stickers, I think it's safe to say that we could remove 1 from consideration. Is anybody opposed to taking 1 off for this at this point? Okay, so we'll take 1 off of the list of options that are being shared on the 19th. Option 1A has 11 votes as well, or 11 stickers, I should say. Anybody else? Anybody want to provide some comments on 1A and what they felt, what compelled them to put a sticker on 1A? Is it, are there any weaknesses that you identified with 1A, things that you didn't like about 1A?
I think for us, it was the Providence Road corridor again, they were still shipping too many kids far from where they're at now and pushing them down against traffic. And so we were trying to keep consistency there.
Okay. Okay. So I think since it has the second highest number of stickers, is it safe to take this one off? Is anybody opposed to taking option 1A off of the list of options to present on the 19th? Okay. Option 2A has 8 total stickers. Does anybody want to provide any feedback on what compelled you to put a sticker on 2A? A reason why you didn't think it was good, or didn't any weaknesses in 2A that you want to note that we don't want to replicate?
This one was kind of the same as option 1 for me. It didn't address the neighborhoods that are going to their 6th furthest away elementary school, as well as all the bus issues that we've had and the mileage.
Okay. So proximity concerns. Anything else for 2A? Anybody any input people want to share? Okay, so is it safe to take 2A off then? Okay, anybody opposed to taking 2A off and not presenting it on the 19th? Okay, so then 1A and 2A are going to get taken off. We could still use components of them and reference. You have all the materials for them, so we could still build on any strengths that you identify in these, but we'll take them off so that we can focus on a smaller subset. So then we have 4 options left, and the stickers are pretty closely disseminated across these 4 options. The option 3 had 5 stickers. So what do you think about option 3? Those who put stickers on option 3, what were your concerns with option 3 that you felt didn't meet our criteria or our objectives? Are there any weaknesses with 3 that you felt we didn't want to replicate in future variations of the maps?
In looking through, we weren't finding that those were that was a top option for any of the schools we were looking at.
Okay.
So.
When you're zoomed out far away, like on MS option 3, it looks like there's a blue wedge in between the orange, but when you zoom in, it fills in with orange.
Okay.
So FYI.
Okay. Can you do it? Can you? Okay. Yeah, that's a caching issue. I'll take note. It is all orange in the map. So I'll take note of that. It may be something with the way the map was cached. Okay. Would you like to, knowing that, would you like to place your dot in a different spot? Okay. Okay. Well, so let's hold on 3 and figure out what we want to do with 3. Because this one's close to option 4 that has 4 dots. Anybody would share any feedback on option 4? They felt at least met the criteria and objectives. Any concerns that shot out at you with option 4? Does anybody want to provide is there any feedback at all for option 4 or any of, or option 3 per se that you feel are some strengths, some things to build on for an option like this?
For option 4, and I have not had a chance to go through the elementary schools really closely, but just looking at the utilization percentages, one of the schools is at 114%, that's Newtown, and just 109, just looking at the elementary schools had large, over 100% utilization at several schools.
Okay. Okay. Well, given that this has so few stickers, I think it would be good to keep this on the list of things to share with the public to get some input, knowing that everything is draft here and that we're still working through it, and we could spawn options or variations of these. But option 4, since it has only 4 stickers, I think that we keep that to share on the 19th. Is everybody okay with that?
I felt like option 4 was some of the best options for Walter Bickett and East. So looking at the numbers, I thought that was one of the better options for those 2 schools.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll keep option 4 on and continue to build off of it and reference it. Option 5, since we're down here, has 3 stickers. What about option 5? People who put a sticker on there, what were your thoughts? Or if you didn't put a sticker on there, either way, why did you feel it was good, or why did you feel it was one that didn't meet the criteria? Any input?
I liked option 5 for the middle school and the high school level. I felt it kept the most number of students where they currently are. Would allow them to continue to have that consistency. The challenge, I think, is marrying the elementary school option 5 and then the middle and high school option 5. So we put some notes in to maybe look at tweaking some planning blocks or doing that so we're not having so many cross feeds into the middle high school level. But I mean, obviously there's some challenges there. I think the other challenge to note would be helpful at some point to see the future demographic data, because if we're looking at 16, 17 data at this point, it's hard to project what that's going to do, 4 or 5 years down the road when those numbers are supposed to be coming down. And so, should we be thinking even, more aggressively in where we're moving some of these planning blocks, or being able to keep some of the planning blocks so that they're not being moved from their current location. Okay.
Yeah, we are working with the data that we have is a 16, 17. And then we supplement that with the forecast, but it is sort of trudging on sort of unknown territory, because we're talking about 18, 19, 19, 20 and things like that. So so you have to rely on what we know of students that live in the zone, but then also rely on the forecast to see what they're anticipating for the future as well. And it's certainly a challenge and not perfect per se, but yes, ma'am.
In option 5 at the elementary level, it didn't make sense to me to extend Weddington Elementary all the way to Providence Road. I mean, I think it would put that subdivision at farther than their 5th closest, because that elementary didn't even show up on the mileage chart.
Okay. So those Providence Road communities going up to Weddington. Okay. Any other input about 5? So since it has three stickers only as the fewest number, I think it's okay to carry this forward and see what input we get and build on that. Some other things that I noticed just an observation I had with some of these, I think it was 3, 4, and 5, were the utilization at Fairview was pretty low, and taking some of those Lawyers Road communities down into Stallings and into the Porter Roach cluster. One of my heartburns with 3, 4, and 5 is the lower utilization at Fairview. We did bring it up a little bit in option 5 to give it some more a higher utilization, but I think it was for 3 and 4 it was on the lower side. So just something to note, something to maybe look at, maybe giving them some more utilization, more students as we continue our work. So 4 and 5 are still are going to be presented. 2B is going to be presented, and then option 3. Did you still want to keep your sticker on 3, knowing that? Okay. Okay. So I'll just X one out, and I'll change it to 4. So it's not uncommon for us to take 4 maps to the public information session. We have done it before. We try to keep it at 3, but since this one is so close, these all have like 3 or 4 dots on them. I think it may be suitable to just keep all 4 of them on the table to take to the public information session. Does anybody agree with that or disagree with that thought?
One question I would have with the 2A and 2B, but the elementary school is 2, I feel like that's still a hazy thing. How does that work?
Okay, so
make
as
a
it sits
suggestion?
now, this
Just
option
call
is
the
going to have
elementary
elementary
2B.
option 2, but then middle school 2B, 2A, 2B, and high school 2B. So elementary option 2 is still floating out there in terms of an option that's going to be presented. Remember, everything is draft, and we can certainly keep building on this, and we'll probably go through another round or 2 of these in the next subsequent meetings as I create scenarios based on public input from the public information session, and also results of some of the exercise you guys did today and any other feedback we get. You may get this, we're starting with, we have what, 7 here, and then we're bringing it down to 4. We may end up with another 6 or 7 or so, and then keep weeding it down, kind of filtering it down to get to a good number as we keep trying to hone in on what the best plan is. So with 2B, 3, 4, and 5 being the ones, since they're so close in terms of number of stickers, we okay with taking those to the public for some input? So for the ease of what we typically do at this point to make sure that there's no question when we come up to the public information session, there'll be 2B, 3, 4, and 5, and people will start asking, well, where's option 1 and this and that, who aren't really in tune with the process. What we typically do at this point is we will rename these to A, B, C, and D. And then you're going to have an elementary, middle, and high A, elementary, middle, high B, same thing with C and D. Is that okay? So for the public information session, 2B is going to be option A, 3 is going to be B, option 4 is going to be C, and option 5 will be D. And we will reorganize the materials and rename so that there's so that everything is consistent, as well as the interactive map. So that's pretty clear. So I was hoping to get to 3 tonight, but I think that 4 is okay. 4 will certainly suffice, and it's not uncommon for us to take 4 to the public. If you feel 4 these are the 4 that least meet the that best meet the criteria. We weeded out 3 that least meet the criteria. So thank you for that. That's going to be helpful, and we'll prepare for the public information session on the 19th. I wanted to give you a little bit of a preview on that public information session on the 19th. We'll be taking options A through D and presenting them to them. This public information session is going to be at CATA on the same campus here right behind us. It's going to be in the auditorium and the cafeteria. So we're going to start and invite the public to come into the auditorium, where we'll give them a PowerPoint presentation, present a PowerPoint that gives them an overview of the process and where we started, how things evolved, the number of options that have been developed, and the timeline. Just give them an overview of the big picture, what the criteria and objectives are, so they're oriented on the entire process up as it stands on the 19th. Following that PowerPoint presentation, we're going to have a series of maps A through D, probably 3, maybe 4 copies in the cafeteria, scattered about in the cafeteria, where we're going to invite the public to come out to the cafeteria, and committee members and myself and consultants and staff will be standing around the maps and having discussions with the public about different options and just talking with them about some of their considerations and their observations. We always encourage them to, as you're talking with the public, to hear them out and listen to their input and take that in, but also encourage them to fill out an online survey. So we will have a survey that's built to accompany the options A through D that surveys the public and asks them their input on the various options. And we'll be asking them questions as it relates to the overall criteria, and so that you can have some data and input that aligns with the criteria and see what the public is saying. This format is more of a gallery walk style format, where the open house, where the public comes and they can talk with the committee and talk with us and sitting around them. It's not going to be an open mic type format, because I've been involved in open mic and I've seen the open mic format before. And what happens is you end up with a row of people who want to speak, and very often you'll hear the same concern from a good number of people. And there may be people who don't feel comfortable talking in front of mic, who aren't voicing their concerns, that you may not hear from. All in all, what it boils down to is this is really a data collection effort. We're trying to get more input, as much input as possible from the public. And the open mic does not enable maximum data collection. So the survey is the best way to do it. So when you're talking with them around maps, encourage them to fill the survey out online so that the full committee can benefit. Once we get all this input, we're going to I'm going to take all the data and put it into a summary report that I'll share with you at the 5th meeting. In addition to the maps, we'll also have an easel that shows all the statistics in one sort of plot style format, so that the numbers will be there right next to the maps and people can look at the numbers and the maps that accompany it. It's going to be a 2-hour session, and I think we're giving them about 2 weeks to fill out the survey. And so I think the survey deadline is going to be somewhere around October the 2nd, and that gives us time, gives us like a week and a half or a week and a couple days to tabulate all the data and put it into a report for you, and then possibly generate some scenarios based on what we see. You guys have any questions about that format? It would be good if you guys could get there a little bit early. I know that it's 6 o'clock is when we're doing the kicking off the public information session. But if you could be there a little bit early, kind of get a feel for how things are laid out. We'll probably give you some name tags, probably have some name tags for you, so that the public can see who committee members are and consultants and things like that. But it's a pretty simple format, and it's really just more about not about the committee that night. It's more about the public and letting the public talk with you and ask questions from you. And I'll be around to answer the tough questions, and things that you don't feel comfortable answering, you can certainly rope me in. I'm usually in a corner surrounded by about 50 parents and talking to them and things like that. But I'm there to help, as well as Dr. McKibben and staff. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about this? So yep, September 19th from 6 to 8 p.m. If you could finish those school-by-school exercises for me, and whenever you're done with them, you can scan them and email. Even if you want to take a picture of both sides and email me a picture, however you want to get it to me, that's fine. Or you can bring it to me on the 19th. That would work fine as well. Does anybody have any comments or questions or anything else that they want to share before we adjourn?
I just want to ask one more time, as other people have asked, is the grandfathering. I do believe the board will be discussing it in September. Is that accurate?
Grandfathering is still it's still to be determined. I know that it's clearly stated in their criteria and in the objectives. So in the policy, there is something there for grandfathering. I don't think it has. I know that they haven't further refined or defined the criteria. I think a lot of it is the district, and we see this in other places too. They want to kind of get a better feel for the impact and the number of students that would be impacted, so that they can get a more refined understanding before they decide how they want to do the grandfathering. But I know that there has been lots of questions from the public as well as the committee about grandfathering. The district is aware of that, and But I do know that that per the policy and as they have stated, there is going to be some form of grandfathering and to help reduce the impact on public, particularly students who are in a school right now and letting them finish out at their school. If typically it's the last 2 years of their time in that school, but I've seen it more flexible in other places. But long story short, the verdict is still out on grandfathering, and I'll follow up with them again.
Speaking for the people.
Yes, and I still get asked why that this is happening at all. So would you mind reiterating again why we're going through all this and doing all this, please?
Yes. Well, the question is why are we here again after they just did this a couple years ago, and as we had stated in earlier parts of this process, the district is in the process of adding classrooms to several schools per a bond program. So there are classroom additions that are being planned at various schools throughout the county. Also, there are some imbalances in building utilization at schools, and so there's an interest to address that. And then also the board as a whole and the staff ultimately wants to take a fresh look at the boundaries and try to assign students closer to home, if at all possible. So they've given us a set of criteria that we have to look at and try to balance the criteria, and proximity to school is one of them. It's also listed in the objectives. So proximity is a big factor, but it's also to help account for new construction and then other imbalances that exist in building utilization.
So the 4 options, A, B, C, and D, you said you will take those to the transportation department now to see what busing efficiencies would look like or what concerns they might have for that as well?
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to take these 4 and I'm going to present them to the transportation office, set up a web conference, or even come down and meet with them and talk about the options and get some of their feedback, and probably have them take some of these maps and just mark them up and share that input with me. And that information I will share with you at the either in between meetings or at the next committee meeting. Anything else you guys want to share, or any other notes, comments?
I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to correct something. When the board originally took this on in December, in December, I want to correct something. It was taken to look at neighborhood schools. The whole reason it came up at the board meeting was for neighborhood schools. That kids were being bused too far away in the county, and they were going to their 4th and 5th closest schools. So it was neighborhood schools and transportation and efficiency, and then everything else Matt said. The bond really didn't play a huge part in it, and utilization. Building utilization was huge. We had a lot of underutilized schools that were empty because of the kids being farther from their neighborhood schools. So I just want to kind of clarify that a little bit. Transportation and efficiencies, building utilization, and neighborhood schools. If you go back to the December 6th meeting, I think we lay that out pretty clearly if you look at the minutes. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, thank you.
Clarify that.
Yes, thank you very much.
May I ask another question
Yes.
then? I know I had emailed to request again what the boundaries were prior to the last redistricting, because transportation efficiency was really good at that point from my understanding, and also kids were in schools closer to their homes. I was curious if we were able to make any headway on that.
I have talked with the district about that, and they shared a map with me. And so I will follow up with you in the next couple of days. I'll send you the maps that they sent me so that you could see the boundaries before the last process. So that's something I had noted on my notes here, and I will follow up with you on that so that you can get a visual of what those look like.
So will that be shared with the entire group?
Yes, I'll email to the entire committee. I think they're PDF maps that the district had created of those boundaries some time back. Anything else, guys? Well, it's we got 30 seconds. You sure? I mean, okay. Well, thank you again for all your time, and have a good night. We'll see you on the 19th. And have a good night. We'll see you in a couple weeks.